Subscribe to Dr. Nightmare channel now.
Story 1. The Tape Inside Room 121. There's an old hotel off Route 8 called Hotel Verdant. It doesn't show up on most GPS maps. From the outside, it looks ordinary. 2 stories, peeling green paint, and a neon sign that flickers between vacancy and nothing at all. Most guests don't stay longer than a night. But in early March 2004, a man named Daniel Kresnik checked into room 121. He never checked out. Daniel was quiet. He paid in cash, didn't give a last name, and asked for the most private room available. The night clerk didn't think much of it. Travelers passing through sometimes acted strange. It wasn't uncommon. That first night, Daniel went to his room and locked the door behind him. At exactly 11:47 p.m., something happened. The TV turned on by itself. No channels, no static, just a black screen. Daniel stared at the reflection on the screen for several minutes. At first, it looked like his own image, but then it began to change. The figure on the screen smiled before he did. Its head tilted just slightly to the left. His didn't. That's when the lights flickered. Daniel started recording on a small camcorder he brought with him. The footage was later recovered by police. In the video, he speaks directly to the camera. His voice is shaky, and there's a hum in the background, like electricity or whispering. He says, "I think the room is watching me. Not just the TV, the mirror, the walls. I hear something behind them, breathing, scratching." The next part of the tape is corrupted, but the audio picks up Daniel muttering something again and again. "He's wearing my skin." At 4 a.m., the front desk received a call from room 121. Daniel said there was someone under the bed. Security was sent to investigate, but when they opened the door, Daniel was found huddled in the corner, eyes wide, whispering to himself. The room was cold, much colder than the others. They found the TV playing footage of Daniel asleep. The angle of the footage couldn't have come from the room. It was overhead, as if something had been watching from the ceiling. Later that day, Daniel vanished. No one saw him leave. His car was still in the parking lot. His clothes were neatly folded on the bed, but the mirror in the room had cracked from the inside. Behind the mirror, police found a hidden compartment with an old VHS tape labeled "Do Not Watch." Of course, they watched it. The footage begins with a different man sitting in room 121. Not Daniel. Someone else. He looks confused. He stares into the TV and says, "There's someone inside the wall." As he speaks, the mirror behind him starts to warp. Something is pressing from inside. A face, pale, watching. But the man doesn't see it. The reflection in the TV raises its hand and points directly at the camera. The screen goes black. In the police report, officers described room 121 as unstable. Objects moved when unobserved. The clock never ticked. The bathroom light turned on only when no one was in the room. They tried removing the TV. It reappeared the next day. They tried replacing the mirror. It cracked again. Same pattern. A diary was later discovered behind the TV panel. The final entry read, "The room keeps resetting. I open the door and I'm back in bed. I try to leave and I see myself climbing in through the window. The version of me in the mirror is still smiling. He's learning my face. He's copying my voice. If you find this, don't stay in room 121. Don't even stand near the door. The Analog Containment Division was called in months later. They reviewed all footage, including Daniel's tapes and the VHS. One analyst noted that no matter who recorded video in room 121, Daniel's face eventually appeared, whether in reflections, shadows, or on the TV screen. They labeled the room a reflection entity, capable of copying identities and warping perception. Victims reported looping timelines, personal memories being rewritten, and physical transformations in the mirror. It was decided that room 121 would be sealed off permanently. But the story doesn't end there. 5 years later, another VHS was mailed anonymously to a university film department. No return address. It contained a clip labeled 121. In the footage, a man sits on the bed of room 121. The lighting is dim. The camera slowly zooms in on the TV screen. The reflection is not the man sitting on the bed. It's Daniel. He smiles and says, "I'm still here."
Story 2. Do not answer the Channel 13 test. In 1999, just before the world flipped into a new millennium, a small town in Wisconsin began experiencing something strange. It started with static. Just before midnight, Channel 13, an unused frequency on local cable, would activate on its own. Most homes didn't even get the channel, but those who did noticed it only appeared when the room was completely dark, and only when they were alone. The first known appearance of the Channel 13 test was on March 9th. A man named Curtis Bell reported that his TV screen lit up around 12:01 a.m. He lived alone, no pets, no timers, no explanation. The screen displayed a black and white room with a single chair. Then a message appeared. "This is a test of self. Sit down and watch. Do not look away." Curtis assumed it was a bizarre prank or maybe some old test signal bleeding through. But then the room on the screen changed. The camera showed his own living room, empty at first. Then a man entered the frame and sat in the chair. It was him. Curtis didn't remember sitting there, but the man on screen was wearing the same pajamas, same haircut, same scar on his chin from a childhood bike accident. But the man wasn't looking at the camera. He was staring directly at Curtis through the screen. Curtis said it felt like he was being stared at from the inside of the glass. Then the TV cut to black. That would have been strange enough, but it didn't stop there. The next night it happened again. The same test, the same voice. "This is a test of self. Sit down and watch. Do not look away." This time the screen showed Curtis in the chair, asleep. But something was crawling out from the shadows behind him. Over the next few weeks, dozens of similar reports came in. Different houses, different people, always the same. Channel 13 turns on after midnight, shows you a room, then shows you yourself. Sometimes asleep, sometimes awake, sometimes missing pieces. In one case, a teenager named Haley said her reflection on the screen blinked, but she didn't. In another, a man named Douglas saw himself screaming, but the sound was muted. The government eventually caught wind of it. An analog signal investigator from the FCC named Martin Griggs was assigned to review the anomaly. He set up equipment in a sealed room with a camcorder recording the entire night. At 12:01 a.m., Channel 13 activated. But instead of showing a living room or a person, it simply displayed a countdown. 30, 29, 28. Griggs sat silently as the numbers ticked down. At 0, the screen went black. Then his name appeared. Martin Griggs, you failed. The next day, Martin was missing. Security footage showed him walking into the monitoring room, but no footage showed him ever coming out. They found the tape still running. It ended with the words, "Channel 13 has accepted a new test subject." A few researchers attempted to decrypt the frequency. What they found was chilling. Channel 13's analog feed wasn't coming from any broadcast tower. It was bouncing between inactive nodes, some of which had been disconnected since the 70s. It was as if the signal was crawling like a spider across dead cables, abandoned wires, and obsolete systems. The phenomenon became known as the Channel 13 test, a myth, a warning. People began covering their TVs before bed, unplugging them entirely. But even that didn't stop it. Some reported hearing the message from inside the turned-off screens. Sit down. Do not look away. This is a test. The most unsettling case came from a woman named Nora Finn, a nurse who lived alone. She called 911 one night, saying someone was in her house. She was hysterical. By the time police arrived, the house was empty, but her TV was still on. Channel 13 was playing. It showed 3 people tied to chairs, faces blurred, with the following text. One of these is Nora. One is an imposter. One is what comes next. Choose. There was no remote, no buttons, just the screen, waiting. And then it blinked off. The footage from that night, preserved by a neighbor's security system, showed Nora walking back into her house at 3:17 a.m. But something about her looked wrong. She didn't blink. She didn't look at the officers or the flashing lights. And when she walked by a window, her reflection didn't follow. Over time, the Channel 13 tests became more aggressive. One victim said the screen called his name before anything appeared. Another saw his deceased brother speaking in reverse. A boy in Arizona reportedly disappeared after his parents saw a message on their TV that read, "The test has been passed. He is our own now." No sign of him was ever found. Researchers began recording the signals. Most of the audio was garbled, like broken code or reversed whispers. But one voice was eventually isolated. It said, "You are not the original. You are the rehearsal. The real version never left the chair. We are building something. You will be part of it." The Channel 13 signal was permanently banned in several counties by 2006. But even that didn't stop it. It began showing up on VHS tapes, tapes that people never owned, tapes they never bought. One man found a tape in his attic labeled Home Movies 1994. When he played it, he saw footage of his own childhood birthday party. But in the background was a TV, displaying him as an adult, staring back. To this day, there is no known origin for Channel 13. Some say it's a government experiment gone wrong. Others believe it's a sentient signal, an analog consciousness feeding on identity. But one theory is the most disturbing. A former cable worker once said, "Channel 13 isn't broadcasting to us. It's watching, waiting, selecting. When you see yourself on the screen, it's already too late." In 2021, a YouTube user uploaded a screen recording of what they claimed was the Channel 13 test. It showed a familiar room, a chair, a mirror on the wall, and a message. "If you see this, you have been chosen." Then a final frame appeared. "Sit down. Do not look away. We are coming through."
Story 3. The broadcast that shouldn't exist. In the quiet rural sprawl of Grayson County, nights move slow and quiet. Most residents, scattered across long fields and silent cul-de-sacs, don't stay up past midnight. Nothing ever happens there. Until it did. June 11th, 2001, a Tuesday. A date forgotten by most, except those who watched Channel 7 that night. It was 2:13 a.m. when televisions across the county glitched. It didn't matter if the set was on or off. Screens lit up on their own. Power buttons became unresponsive. Remote batteries failed. Some were recording movies. Others were asleep, unaware their TVs had turned on by themselves, tuned to something that wasn't supposed to exist. What aired next became known as the glitch tape. It started with a sudden pop, like something cracking inside the walls. Then color bars, standard emergency protocol, but they were wrong. The colors were reversed, flickering out of sync. The test tone was distorted, pitched lower than normal, like something groaning underwater. Then came the voice. "Testing transmission. Respond if aware." It wasn't a human voice, not entirely. It sounded like someone or something was trying to imitate how humans speak. It was emotionless, artificial. The words were stretched, broken by static. The screen changed. Symbols flashed across in white against black, geometric shapes, circles overlapping with lines, forming impossible angles. The shapes seemed to pulse. People described nausea, headaches, even nosebleeds. One woman claimed the shapes moved even when she looked away. Others claimed their electronics failed completely. Radios began hissing, microwaves flickered on and off, lights buzzed and popped. A man in North Grayson said his garage door opened and slammed shut 6 times. Then, the face appeared. Unblinking, pale, too smooth, too clean. Its eyes were too far apart, too wide. Its mouth didn't move when it spoke. Its head tilted slowly, unnaturally. It said, "I see you watching." Several viewers reported hallucinations after that line. One said she felt someone standing behind her. Another said a voice whispered her name from inside the walls. A third, a college student, described a burning smell and the sensation of fingers brushing against the back of his neck. Then, 5 words flashed across the screen in deep blood-red text. "This is not your signal." 6 minutes. That's all it lasted. But those 6 minutes unraveled something in Grayson County. The aftermath. In the week that followed, 5 people were hospitalized. They spoke about the man in the static. Not just on TV. He appeared in reflections, in windows, in puddles. One man claimed he saw the face in the toaster chrome, watching him. A local girl, Hallie Monroe, age 17, vanished from her bedroom the following Thursday. Her room was untouched. Her window was locked from the inside. Her parents found only one clue, a burnt symbol etched into her bedsheet, one of the same symbols from the broadcast. She was never found. Inside Channel 7, the station denied everything, said no unscheduled content was ever broadcast, claimed no logs existed of a 2:13 a.m. interruption. But an anonymous leak told a different story. A technician, Nathan Mills, was working the night shift. Security footage showed Nathan staring blankly at his monitor from 2:11 to 2:17 a.m. He didn't blink, didn't move. His eyes stayed open, wide and lifeless. At 2:18 a.m., he stood up, walked away, and was never seen again. He left behind one file on his computer. Just one. The file was named Received. Inside, nothing but static and a single voice recording. "You saw. Now you serve." The tech station was scrubbed clean 2 days later. The footage of Nathan Mills was deleted from internal servers. But the file was already spreading. People began trading it online, downloading, copying, sending. The more copies that circulated, the more reports came in. Sightings, vanishing pets, TVs activating at night, whispers and disconnected radios. The broadcast was growing. The VHS in the church. A month later, a hiker found a black VHS tape in the ruins of an abandoned church outside of town. The building had no power, no windows, and had been closed for 20 years. Yet the tape was warm to the touch. Written in marker across the label, "Emergency alert test, do not watch." Of course, someone did. This version had extra footage. It opened with a staticky filled hallway. The camera was shaking, held at an odd height, as if someone very tall was recording. At the far end of the hallway stood a figure, unmoving, silhouetted, arms too long, head too small. The screen glitched. The figure surged forward, and the screen cut out. A whisper. This frequency belongs to us. Then came another message. This one showed up on people's televisions, phones, even car radios. Words would scroll across digital clocks. Messages blinked into existence on smart screens, even those not connected to anything. All of them said the same thing. We have entered the signal. The victims. A woman named Trish Ellison claimed to have seen herself sleeping on her own TV. A man in downtown Grayson watched as his television showed his front porch, then his living room, then himself sitting and watching the TV in real time. When he turned off the TV, it turned itself back on, louder. A local radio host went missing during a late-night broadcast. He was halfway through a sentence when his voice became garbled, then reversed, then silent. When his coworkers found the studio, it was empty. The chair was still spinning. His headset was still warm. On the studio glass, smeared in red ink, was a crude drawing. A face, wide-eyed, smiling. Beneath it, join the static. The transmission map. Investigators created a crude map of reports. The signals always started near broadcast towers, but never stayed there. They moved like ripples. Radio towers, cell networks, smart TVs, anything with a signal was a door. One theory said the broadcast wasn't just a message. It was a carrier, a parasite. Something was spreading, using our networks like veins. Another theory went further. What if humans were never the original broadcasters? What if the airwaves belonged to something older, something hidden between frequencies? We've just been borrowing them. Until now. The man in the walls. By 2003, dozens of residents had fled Grayson County, but for some, escape wasn't possible. A woman named Jenna Byrne reported hearing a constant rhythmic static sound in her walls. At first, she thought it was bad wiring, then voices, then breathing. An electrician came to inspect the home. He found something behind the drywall, an old analog receiver, plugged into nothing, still powered. He took one photo before disappearing. The photo showed a small black screen with a single red message. Do not unplug me. He never returned. The final broadcast. In 2006, Channel 7 shut down. Their final message aired unexpectedly at 3:33 a.m. The screen went black, then a loud, jagged tone. Not a note, more like a scream made mechanical. A slow crawl of text appeared at the bottom. We are not copies. We are the original signal. You are the noise. Then a countdown began from 30. When it hit 0, every television tuned to Channel 7 went white, then cut to black, forever. The station was torn down a year later. No records were kept. No one claimed ownership of the building. Its foundation remains buried under weeds and broken concrete. But it didn't end. Even today, reports still come in. Smart speakers turning on by themselves, phones recording voices no one remembers saying, white noise patterns forming faces, your face, children speaking in monotone voices during sleep, car radios playing messages that start with, "We are watching your frequency." No one knows what the glitch tape really was. A test? A threat? a breach? But some believe it was a door. And the door was opened. What's coming through now isn't human. And it's already inside your signal.
Story 4. The Signal in Room 119. It began with a quiet hum. Room 119 at the Waymark Motel had always been one of the least requested units. Tucked into a dim corner near the back lot, guests often complained about the flickering light just outside the door and the TV inside that refused to pick up anything but static. But for $45 a night, the motel stayed full, except for that room. That week, James Rowland, 43, checked in without question. Just a backpack, an old laptop, and eyes that looked like they hadn't rested in years. He asked for the back, something quiet. The front desk gave him 119. They always did. The first night, James didn't sleep. Not because of the thin mattress or the buzzing from the faulty ceiling fan. It was the static. Even unplugged, the TV would switch on at exactly 2:11 a.m., flooding the room with white noise and snow. The screen displayed nothing until it did. Just for a second, a blink, a face, distorted, mouth wide, no eyes. James thought it was a glitch. Motel equipment was notoriously unreliable. But when he played back the CCTV feed from his laptop, he worked in security and always had his own gear running. There was no TV flicker, no sound, no face. The second night, the room began speaking. It wasn't a voice in the way you'd expect. No whispers, no growls. It was a pattern. Knocks from behind the mirror. A scraping sound in the wall at exactly 3:17 a.m. The faucet would start dripping blood, not water, blood. James wasn't scared, not yet. He was a skeptic, or at least he used to be. He recorded it all, posted it to a dark web forum under the tag Room 119 Haunting. Real proof? Only one reply came back. Leave before the signal binds to you. Don't listen at 4:44. That night, he didn't listen. He stayed up and waited, and when 4:44 arrived, the TV came on, this time without even being plugged in. The screen showed a hallway. Familiar. It was the motel, but not how it looked now. The footage was in black and white, flickering with some kind of soft growling in the background. In the hallway stood a person. No, not a person, a figure. Its face was stretched downward, jaw distended, dragging on the floor like a wet sheet. It didn't walk. It moved frame by frame like it was skipping reality. And then it looked directly into the camera. James threw up. At 5 a.m., the room went silent. No static, no knocks, no scraping. But the walls, they began to sweat. A thick black liquid oozed from every corner. James grabbed his bag, his laptop, and bolted out into the early dawn. But when he got to the front desk, no one was there. The clocks had stopped. All of them. Phones dead. Even the road outside the motel looked still, like it had been frozen in time. He walked into the manager's office hoping to find someone. The door creaked open with a resistance that felt wrong, like something didn't want it opened. Inside was a wall of VHS tapes. Each one was labeled Guest 119, Subject Sink. They dated back to 1997. James watched one. The footage was of a man, a stranger, sitting in room 119, sweating and whispering to himself. It looked just like the clips James had captured. The static, the face, the mirror knocking. But at the end of the cape, the man stood up and walked into the bathroom and never came out. Not metaphorically, not off screen. Literally, the footage kept rolling and the man just vanished. He walked in and the frame remained on that bathroom door for over 6 hours. Then, nothing. He checked the bathroom in his own room that night. There was nothing out of place until he turned out the light. Then, in the dark, a red glow emitted from the sink. When he turned the flashlight back on, it was gone. He ran. Only he couldn't. Room 119 wouldn't let him leave. The door was gone, and its place just static, wall static. The wall now looked like TV snow, moving and twitching. When he touched it, it felt cold, then wet, then it opened. On the other side, another 119, but not the one he had just left. It was an endless loop. Each door led to another room 119, sometimes cleaner, sometimes decayed. Once he opened the door and saw himself sleeping on the bed, but when he reached out, the figure opened its eyes. No pupils, just black voids. It said nothing, but its mouth moved. He listens now. He belongs here. James screamed. Eventually, he stopped screaming. The human mind adjusts. He began recording again, mapping the loops, searching for a clue, an exit. He made 17 videos, none uploaded. Every time he tried to, the files corrupted. The last video was just 6 minutes of a face, not his, not anyone's, just that same mouth, jaw dragging, grinning, repeating the words. You watched, you listened, you let it in. A week later, the motel clerk finally entered room 119. The room was empty, clean, no sign of James, but the TV had been left on. And at exactly 2:11 a.m., it played footage from inside the room. There, sitting on the bed, was James Rowland, but his face was wrong, longer, unblinking, just static where his eyes should be, and he stared into the screen and smiled.
Story 5. The Numbers Station Beneath the Lake. They thought it was just a myth. Just one of those strange internet tales passed around on conspiracy forums. An old Cold War number station still operating beneath a drained lake in northern Maine. But it was real. And it was never abandoned. The story begins with two amateur radio enthusiasts, Daniel Monroe, 33, and Melissa Crane, 28. They ran a late-night podcast called Echoes Unheard, where they tracked obscure radio signals and mysterious broadcasts. A few months back, a listener sent them a tip, a recording with a chilling backstory. The message was simple. They're still broadcasting. 43.51 degrees north, 70.91 degrees west. Don't follow the tone. Attached was a short audio clip. Static. A few numbers, then something else. A voice. Flat, cold, and wrong. like someone was trying to imitate a human, but didn't understand how. It repeated just one phrase, over and over. You are not supposed to hear this. Intrigued, Daniel and Melissa planned a trip to the coordinates. It led them to Lake Capstone, or what was left of it. The lake had been artificially drained years ago after a dam failure, exposing cracked sediment, abandoned boats, and the skeletal remains of a forgotten facility. Locals avoided the area, citing everything from radiation to bad dreams. But the entrance was still there. A metal hatch, half buried in mud, marked only by faded red paint and the number 94 etched in steel. Daniel hesitated. Melissa didn't. She opened the hatch and climbed down into the dark. What they found was a forgotten Cold War bunker. Concrete halls, rusted pipes, and ancient equipment that still hummed with low, unsettling power. It didn't look like anyone had been there in decades. But something was still running. Deeper inside, they found it. The broadcast room. A thick steel door, half melted and reinforced from the inside. Melissa picked up the microphone. "Hello? This is..." The speaker cracked. A voice responded immediately. Not live, not delayed, like it was already waiting. "This is Melissa Crane. Hello, this is Melissa Crane. Hello, this is..." Her own voice, but distorted, looping, slowing down. Then a whisper beneath it. Something else hiding in the noise. "Let it through!" The lights went out. They ran, tried to retrace their steps, but the hallway had changed. Doors that weren't there before now lined the corridor. One was open. Inside, a black and white CRT screen flickered. On it, security footage from a room they hadn't seen before. A bunk chamber with 6 cots. One cot had someone lying in it. Daniel squinted. "That's me." The footage showed Daniel sleeping. On his chest, something pulsed like a tumor made of wires. Melissa reached for the controls. The moment she did, the screen cut to static. Then a new message scrolled across it, letter by letter. "Sleep is a signal." They eventually found a stairwell leading down. The lower level was colder. The walls vibrated with an unseen frequency that made their teeth ache. And in the silence, they heard it. The numbers. 7, 19, 5, 0. Repeat, 7, 19. The voice was wrong. Not just robotic, unnatural, too smooth, too consistent, like it had been programmed by something that never had a mouth. They followed the sound into a sealed chamber. Inside was the transmitter, a monstrous metal machine with a spinning reel-to-reel recorder and a panel of blinking red lights. It was broadcasting, but not just over the airwaves. Melissa clutched her head. "I can hear it in my thoughts." Daniel turned to her. Her nose was bleeding. Suddenly, the reel stopped. The lights flickered and a deep humming began to build from below the floor. A panel slid open, revealing an observation window into a lower chamber. They looked down. Dozens of bodies, floating, eyes open, wires embedded into their heads, mouths slightly parted as if still trying to speak. The voice returned. They heard. They listened. They transmitted. Melissa backed away, shaking. What the hell is this place? Suddenly, the mic on the control panel clicked on, and this time, it was Daniel's voice. Melissa, run. But Daniel hadn't spoken. He stared at the mic. It continued. Melissa, run. Melissa, run. Melissa, sleep now. Sleep now. Sleep. The walls vibrated violently and the lights burst. In the flicker, Melissa saw it. Something standing behind the transmitter. A tall figure. No eyes. No mouth. Just a metal plate where a face should be. It didn't move, but the air screamed. Daniel passed out. Melissa dragged him back to the stairwell, but the doors were gone. Only smooth concrete. The hallway twisted again. And every direction she turned, the numbers followed. 1, 1, 9, 0, 4. She found a service hatch and pushed Daniel through. As she climbed out, the last thing she heard behind her was a whisper. Now you will dream. Daniel awoke 3 days later in a hospital bed. Melissa wasn't with him. No one knew who she was. The local police said he had been found lying in the mud outside the lake, clutching a reel of magnetic tape, blank according to their lab. But Daniel knew better. He still heard the numbers. He still saw the faces behind his eyelids. 2 weeks later, a new broadcast hit amateur shortwave frequencies. It contained only static and the sound of breathing. In the background, you can faintly hear Melissa's voice. I'm still down here. The station is listening. And now, it wants you too.